Today you're going to hear my second lecture on costs, actually broken into two parts. This is an important topic. If you get lost, you may stay lost, so re-listen if you need to. But before I get into the main topic for today, which is average total cost and marginal cost, I wanted to address another element of cost that has actually a lot of applications in our personal lives. So I showed my husband the lecture I'd recorded on elasticity because I thought he'd enjoy my comment that my demand for replacement husbands was relatively inelastic. But he took even more economics courses in college than I did, and he fired right back, well, maybe it's a sunk cost. Made me stop and think. The textbook I use doesn't mention sunk cost, and neither does your textbook. But as I thought about it, I really agree with my husband. It is an important concept, and I don't know why it was left out of the course. I'm going to stick it back in. So let's watch a short video clip. By the way, it's from a TV show called The King of Queens, which I have never heard of, but it's a great illustration of sunk cost. Okay, if you've watched it, what do you think the term sunk cost means? Why might my husband have used it to describe our 35-year marriage? I hope he was teasing me. In economics, a sunk cost is any past cost that has already been paid and cannot be recovered. So, for example, let's say you buy tickets to a concert. On the day of the event, you catch flu. Even though you're sick, you're throwing up, you decide to go to the concert because otherwise you would have wasted your money. You go and you're miserable because you just fell for the sunk cost fallacy. So was my husband assuming our 35 years of marriage was a sunk cost? Well, I don't think I'll go there. But I would note that when I Googled for images of sunk costs, one of the first to show up was this poster, www.infidelityhelpgroup.com, which I assume is also a message about moving on. We actually encounter the sunk cost fallacy quite often in our daily lives. I gave one example. Here's another. Say you purchase a non-returnable shirt on sale. You wear it a couple of times, you realize it's not at all flattering. Do you keep wearing it, even if you have enough other shirts to wear, just because you already paid for it? No, the money's gone. You need to move on. This is an important concept for business firms as well. Suppose a company has spent $5 million building a factory that is not yet complete. The technology changes suddenly, and the factory becomes obsolete even before it's finished. So the company has to consider the $5 million it's already spent as a sunk cost. It can't get the money back. It must also decide whether continuing construction to complete the project, in other words, spending still more money, will help them regain that sunk cost or whether it will result in wasting more money. It's very common for businesses to make the mistake of continuing to sink money into investments that will actually reduce their profits. It is hard to walk away from big investments, but if the investment is never going to pay off, that's something that has to happen. It's best to swallow and move on. And in that spirit, I'm going to move on, but first I'm going to give a quick review, if I can get the slide to build a little faster. Do you remember production functions from back before the long weekend? How about marginal physical product and the law of diminishing returns? Again, marginal physical product is the amount of output that one additional unit of input, say an additional worker, adds to output. And the law of diminishing returns says that if all other inputs are held constant, eventually adding one additional unit or adding additional units of one input will produce lower and lower marginal physical product. You can't just keep crowding workers into the same factory. Here's another review slide of sorts. I hope you remember total and fixed costs. I found this chart on the internet and I like it that it gives a longer list in both categories. So for example, why might taxes for this firm be listed as a variable cost? Well, I'm guessing that it refers to payroll taxes or even sales taxes on raw materials. In other words, costs that go up as production does. Notice that in the short run, this firm considers part-time employees as a variable cost. They can adjust their hours. But full-time salaried employees are a fixed cost. They're on, that makes sense. They aren't paid by the hour, and presumably in the short run, they're paid even if the firm isn't producing anything. Remember, in the long run, there are no fixed costs. In other words, we can all get fired. I won't give you any fixed or variable cost questions that are as hard to interpret, but I thought this list was actually more realistic. And now we do enter new territory. Average total cost is just what it sounds like. It is total cost divided by the number of units of quantity. So why would a business need to know its average total cost? Well, think of it this way. What is another name for average total revenue? Again, in the short run. Well, it's price, isn't it? So I sell 100 cookies for $1 a piece. My average total revenue is $1 per cookie. How much money will I make on each cookie? I will make my average total revenue, or price minus my average total cost per cookie. So it's a very useful number. So here you see a cost table. Note that the fixed costs are the same. It's the cost of operating my business even when I'm not producing anything, or costs at a zero rate of output. Total cost is fixed cost plus variable cost. Average total cost is fixed cost plus variable cost divided by output, or total cost divided by quantity. So what do you observe about average total costs? How do they perform? What do you see? Well, they go down at first and then up again. Why would that be? Well, the answer is that at first, you're spreading your fixed costs over more and more units. Eventually, though, the law of diminishing returns kicks in and new inputs produce less and less marginal product, so average costs begin to increase. As usual, believe it or not, the picture or graph actually makes this easier to see. So here we see that cost table in a graph form. I actually think this is a clearer graph and more like the ones you'll see on your quiz. Notice again the typical U shape. And this just says in words what you just saw in pictures. I'm going to break here now and continue in a second video.